We'll kick off in the room on the mic with Jacob. Thank you.
Hi Robert, Jacob here from Decoding the WSL. Let's start with team news. Beth England has been pictured in training. Is she in contention to start on Sunday?
She trained well this week, so she's back running, and hopefully she's in the squad for this weekend, which is very good news for us. We have Charlie Grant came back from the national team with a minor issue, so she probably cannot be in the squad this week. Luana as well came back with an injury, so she's probably out at least the first upcoming games, perhaps all the 4 games. And Hayley Raso also have a quad issue, which means that she cannot play more this season.
I'm sure it's no secret Beth England's influence on the team. How important is it to have her back, not only from a goals perspective, but also from a leadership perspective?
I mean, if you start with the goal perspective and how she is as a footballer, I think we are looking quite good when we play football right now, when we're creating a lot of chances, and she's probably one of the best finishers in this league. So obviously we're really happy to have her back. But then when you look at her leadership, how she is as a person and leader, I think for me, having her in the locker room, having her on the training pitch, having her around the players, have a big impact on the others. So I'm very happy to have her back.
I'm sure you'll agree, as you just alluded to, that the performances against both West Ham and Leicester were actually quite encouraging, despite not maybe getting the results that we would have wanted. Is there anything you've worked on in training over the past couple of weeks that can ensure that Tottenham can be more clinical in attack?
Yeah, I think we had a good game against Man City 4 games back, and we created some chances, but we came out of that game with no points, which was frustrating. And then we had a really poor game against Brighton, which made us having a clear meeting with what do we need to aim for the last upcoming games. And we went to the identity, how we want to play, how we need to create more goal chances, how we're going to score more goals, how we're going to play our style. And I think the West Ham game was a good step. We lost that 2-0, but we still created some chances and looked the way we want to look in many part of that game. And then Leicester game was a quite dominant game where we should have scored more goals and we should have won that game. But still, we are creating chances, we are playing the style we want. So now we need to make sure that we score more goals, and that's been one of the headlines these 3 weeks, where we train on how to enter the box, how to score, where should we score from, and how we can build the self-confidence in the players.
Thank you. With 4 games left of the season, what does success look like in these last 4 games? Not just only in terms of results, but also what are you looking for in terms of performances?
I think we have 4 more games to try to gain as many points as possible to make sure that the table and the result in that one is as good as possible. But the main thing for me is to make sure we keep growing the way we want to play, to make sure we keep being even more dominant so we can see the progress in how we play, because next year will be the 3rd year, and I really want to make sure we are in a good step where we can compete and close that gap that we spoke about that we haven't done this season. So for me, the performance is actually very important these last 4 games, to see how we can take steps, even if we have not won for a few games, or a lot of games actually. So the mixture of those 2, I would say.
And last question from me, going on to our opponent, Aston Villa, on the weekend. We all know the threat that Rachel Daly carries for Villa up front, especially considering she scored 2 goals in her last 3 games against Tottenham. How do you expect to neuter Daly's threat in the game?
I think when you look at their players and the attacking players, they have a lot of them, and Daly's obviously a really good striker. But the main thing we want to do is to keep them away from our goal by actually having a high press and make sure they don't really get close to that goal. I think that's the best way to do it. We had a really good game against Man City at home where Bunny Shaw didn't have any chances. So hopefully our press can be really good, and that we actually can have the ball more than them, and then we don't really need to worry too much about them.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Okay, we'll move to questions on the online feed. Coming first to Emily.
I just wanted to ask about Eleanor Heaps signing a new contract, and how pleased are you with that, and what potential does she bring to the team?
I think it's extremely good that's showing that we can develop our own players to take the next step. I think when I came here, she was a very shy goalkeeper who didn't really take the place that she needed, but she grown into it the first year with Perry as a goalkeeper coach, and this year with Chris. She have actually performed very well in the league and in the cups this season. She was in the under-23 national team squad last time, so her journey is very interesting. And I think goalkeepers is a tricky one to sign and find all over the world. So I think when you can find one in-house where you can develop her and take steps with her, I think that's brilliant. So really good teamwork from the staff and her here in Tottenham.
And then the men's team played quite an important result last night in the Europa League. I just wondered from the women's side, what, from your point of view, does that buzz and feel-good factor kind of filter
I mean, definitely. I think when you are one club and you actually have collaborations between the units, I think winning together and losing together have an impact on each other. So I think both the men and women obviously had some down periods this time of the year, but now when you saw the men's team making that effort yesterday and fighting so well, and now they are in the semi-final, that will be spreading some good vibes around the training ground and all the way down to us as well, of course.
And then just finally for me, there's only 4 games of the season left, and with the Euros coming up in the summer, do you kind of use that as a manager to motivate the players that there is more to play for than even just for Tottenham?
I mean, we always try to make sure they come ready for the Euros and whatever national team games they have, because I think that's the big thing for women footballers, to make sure they can compete in those situations. Obviously, we work and compete here, and I want to make sure we take steps with the players we have to make sure we take the right decisions in the summer window and what we're going to look like next season. So I think the players, they need to compete here and show what they can do for this club, and in that we're also going to make sure they come prepared for the national team. But we're focusing on ourselves and make sure that we look at the squad and how we can improve ourselves to be even stronger next season. And then the national team is a bonus for them, and we're going to make sure they are prepared for that.
Great, thank you. Good luck for tomorrow.
Cheers.
Thanks, Beth.
Hi, Robert. I hope you're well. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned that Charlie Grant picked up a knock on international duty, and there's been a lot of conversations, obviously lots of players from kind of across the league picking up injuries during that break. The break that has been moved forward in the men's game. So I just wanted to ask if you have any thoughts on that, and regarding the scheduling, is there anything you'd like to see change?
I mean, when you look at injuries and national team breaks, obviously it's a higher risk because people are all of a sudden changing habits. They are flying to different time zones. They are all of a sudden working with new coaches and everything. So it's really hard to not, that's the part of the game, and that's how we try to collaborate more and more with the national teams to make sure they have a really good transition in and back to that. And then obviously sometimes you pick up injuries, and I think we need to keep working with the collaboration to make sure we load the players in the right way when they go away and when they come back. And sometimes they go away and play on artificial grass, sometimes they go away and playing this and that. So it's extremely hard to find the right balance of that, but it's obviously a clear pattern that you pick up some more injuries when it's a national team break, but it's also part of the game, so we just need to adapt to it.
Thank you. Good luck at the weekend.
Cheers.
Charlotte.
Hey, happy Easter. You mentioned Haley Plateau is out for the rest of the season. Just wanted to pick up on what's going on with her, because it looked like she was on a flight to Australia whilst her teammates were playing. If she was injured, why did she hook up with the international squad? I just wanted to get on some clarification, your relationship with Haley and what's going on more generally.
Yeah, she picked up basically the last training before the Leicester game where we were supposed to leave. She came off that training with a minor issue with her quad, so then we didn't pick her for that squad, but then we sent her to Australia to make sure they can have a second opinion. And then when she came there, she did a scan and she had a bigger problem with the quad. So that's the really sad point for her, because now she missed the last games. And I mean, I had a good meeting with her today. We are working good together. The issue this season has been that we haven't really nailed the way we play, and of course she has ups and downs in how she plays, but she's a very good footballer, and it's up to me to make sure she get back stronger and can perform. But mainly it's she started very well, and then as a team we haven't been really successful, and that's as a part of everyone basically.
Cheers, thanks.
Cheers.
Alex.
Afternoon, Robert. Can I just ask, obviously, about Aston Villa this weekend? They picked up a big win last time out, which kind of cleared them in the relegation battle slightly. What have you made of them under their new manager recently?
I think they have had a tough year with changing managers 2.5 times or whatever you say. I think they have some really top players. I think adding a new coach and trying to find a new way to win, and then being in a relegation battle was probably not what they expected. And I think last 2 games I've seen that she have changed the style a little bit and make sure they get the points they need, and they had a big success against Liverpool, so you can tell that she's intelligent to find ways to get the points. She have done a good job where she coached before, so it's going to be an interesting game, but obviously they still are a few points above Crystal Palace, so let's see if they more play for the points or if they play for their identity.
Maybe a bit of a different question, but this is Spurs' final home match this season at Hotspur Road, of course Chelsea at the main stadium. I was just wondering, how have you kind of found making Leighton Orient Stadium your own? And I think you mentioned last season it was maybe a bit of a struggle, but has anything changed this season?
I mean, we had a clear aim to be better in the performance and the points this season at that stadium because we felt like we didn't win enough last season. And we have improved. Perhaps we haven't improved enough, but we have improved on that stadium. The main thing is it's not located in where we are located as a club. So it's there you have one thing, you need to travel to the game every time. The stadium is not a modern stadium where all the facilities is there. So it's obviously not as Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So you're always going to have that mentality where it's the second best, to be honest. But we're growing into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and we're going to have an amazing game there against Chelsea. But once, this is my second year at Brisbane Road. I'm starting to like it in a way where it's quite old, but it's quite unique in a way with British standard. And I think in some way I like it actually. But obviously in the end and in the future, I want to be on a modern, new, great stadium so everybody can feel like we can grow the game even better. But right now it's a good place to be there with our fans.
Perfect. Best of luck for the weekend.
Cheers.
Thanks, Alex. Chris?
Hi, Robert. Good afternoon. Hope you're well. Now, of course, the club have announced that there will be a new chief executive officer in the summer. Have you had a chance to meet Vinay so far, and what are your expectations of him coming in? Because, of course, he is a big supporter of women's football.
Yeah, obviously it's his CV talks for itself, and I think what he have done in his former clubs is amazing. And you can also tell that he has a big focus on both the men and women. So that's a brilliant signing by the club. We just texted each other the day after he was pronounced to make sure we get to know each other. And obviously it's going to be fun to start working with him. And I'm just have good stuff to say about him. And I really like the journey we're doing with Tottenham to make sure we grow the women and the men.
You speak about the journey there. What are your expectations going into that third season at Tottenham Hotspur? Because I remember talking to you early on in your Spurs career, and you said the focus and the aim was to be challenging for Champions League football in your second season. Has that now gone on to be that expectation for next year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm extremely disappointed at this year and how we have not really taken the steps we were supposed to do. But then we also know why that happened, and some things that happened the first year, we lost a few players and staff members that just made it very difficult to keep that journey in that pace we did. And the main thing to not just be very sad about this season, but actually learning from this season so we don't need to take one step back. Perhaps we can take 2 steps forward next season by learning from the mistakes this season. So I really want to make sure we end this season in a good way so we can go into the third season to see how much we can compete, how much can we close the gap, can we be ready already next season, but at least make sure that we are growing as a club, because there's been a struggle this year in many ways, but it's also sometimes you need those struggles to make sure you can take the next step forward. So perhaps the first year was a little bit, we perhaps fooled a little bit, but we were better than we were expecting perhaps, and we didn't really see all the things we needed to develop. So I think we're learning a lot this season, both me, the players, the club, and I think we already have a lot of good plans to make sure this third year will be a good year. But to sit here and speak about closing gaps, fighting for the Champions League, that's probably for the summer window with recruitments and see where we are and how we end this season first. But we're going to definitely learn from this season to make sure we can compete much better next season.
Robert, I always like to finish on a positive. What are the positives that you would take from this season so far?
I think the positives is not always the result in the games. It's how we have developed through the squad development and the staff development and the club development. So if I look at the squad and what we have in the potential in the squad, that's much higher this season than last season. I think we also signing new staff members and finding new roles in that makes us really strong to go into the next season. I also think we saw a few things that was not professional enough in the women's side, which we are now improving on and make sure we can have the standards really high for next season. I think the club as a whole have had a tough season with some bad results both on the men's side and the women's side, and signing Vinay, for example, is a step forward to make sure we take steps as a club. And then you look at it during the season, I've learned so much about the top teams. to not step away too much from our identity, to make sure to find the right chemistry between the players and the identity how we want to play. And I think the third season will be much better because now we have gone through a few mistakes, you can say, and I'm a big fan of learning from mistakes instead of just saying that we are crap. So using all this info from these 2 seasons will make sure that we have a good preparation for the third season.
Best of luck. Thank you, Robert.
Cheers.
Thanks. Ella?
Hey Robert, you spoke in your previous pre-match press conference about building player confidence and that being a really important point that you're wanting to address. So since the international break and coming back, what steps have been taken to ensure you guys go into this weekend with the confidence required to achieve a positive result?
I think the majority of all the trainings and feedback talks and everything is how we now convert the possession, the goal chances into goals. Where is the spaces we want to reach? How do we going to get in there, and what should we focus on when we get in there, and what kind of cross or cutback should it be? And I mean, the Leicester game was actually, in the performance and the stats and everything, a quite good game. If you compare that game to Arsenal's game against Leicester, it's quite actually even in the stats and how it looked. But Arsenal is very clinical in how they score their chances, and we are still struggling in finding the right self-confidence and quality there. So that's what we have focused on, and then it's all about the competition. I mean, some will start the game, some will come onto the game, but they need to take the chance and be a hero or try to find a way to do it, and then we grow from there. But also giving them the trust and patience it's okay to fail if you keep going and keep pushing. So it's a mixture of those, but it takes time to grow self-confidence.
Wonderful, thank you.